My roommate burned his hand at his work on a stove and poured bleach on it like in Fight Club to neutralize the burn. What things have you your friends done that made you question their thought processes? One time my brother broke his thumb from snowboarding down a levee. Broken, as in, purple very quickly, swelling, and definitely bent at an awkward shape. Instead of going to the doctor like any normal kid would do at the age of 13 and in pain, he packed snow in his glove, stuck his hand in the glove and then proceeded to reclimb to the top of the levee with his snowboard. He descended once more and broke his other arm. That's when he decided it was time to go to the doctor. That happened to a friend, somewhat. We were in biology and went outside down by the creek. He decides to jump over the creek and to the other bank. Broke his finger, pushed it back in, tripped over the log he broke it on, and it broke again. I don't know how he is alive. He broke his rib last week wrestling me and my other friends. To be fair, he was pretty drunk, but I once saw a friend accidentally put the lit end of his cigarettes in his mouth. He pulled it out and yelled frick, as you would. He then turned it 360 degrees and put the lit end back into his mouth. Drunk mistakes are best mistakes. My uncle owns this thread. I don't even know where to start. He was once using a blowtorch to remove paint from his kitchen wall and set fire to the insulation and the whole apartment block had to be evacuated. Another time he was removing hot ashes from his fire and putting them in a plastic bucket. The bottom fell out of it as he was carrying it outside and ruined the carpet in his living room. Another time he leant his motorbike up against a window to clean it and it fell straight through the window. A few weeks later he was cleaning the windows after replacing the one he'd broken, and tried to throw the remaining water from the jug onto the window. The jug broke at the handle and went straight through the window. Finally, my personal favorite, he bought a really cheap bike from someone. Intending fix it up, he leant it against one of the walls on the outside of his house and spray painted it. When he moved the bike there was an outline of the bike left painted on the wall. I was out for a walk with one of my friends once and the moon was up in the daytime. In all seriousness he turns to me and says, "I always get a bit scared when the moon's up during the day. I'm really paranoid that it's going to crash into the sun, frick me twice and call me Sally." I didn't even know where to begin with that one, so I just nodded and smiled. I bet he shoots his pants during eclipses. My brother-in-law got a flat tire and threw the wheel away with it. When I was in high school and hanging out with some guys on a Sunday when you can't buy alcohol, they started drinking rubbing alcohol and mouthwash straight from the bottle. At the time I questioned their sanity, not realizing they were actually alcoholics and would both be dead in the following 10 years. One time I got drunk at the beach and I mistook the neighbor's beach house for my own. Long story short, I walked in and tried to get in bed with them. All I remember is the wife screaming, "Lock your doors, P." I hear stories like this all the time. Funny for you, terrifying for them. I agree. Lock your doors, or drunk men might try to snuggle with you. A friend of mine got in a fight at a bonfire. He got tossed into the fire and burnt his forearm pretty good. He didn't want to stop partying so he wrapped his burn in duct tape. Watching him tear it off the next day with hunks of meat still attached will forever haunt me. Oh Christ. My girlfriend didn't know that pro wrestling was fake. She still didn't believe me until she checked online. That was an eye-opener. Sadly, until I was about 13 I thought that was how people actually fought. Luckily I'm a passive person, so I never had the chance to humiliate myself in a real fight trying to clothesline someone. My friend co-worker got a DUI on a mini bike. You know, those John Deere green lawnmower engine things with the huge handlebars? Yep, got on it hammered, ran straight into a wall, broke his face, got wedged, all 6'3", 220-ish pounds of him between a metal street sign pole and a cement wall. When the cops showed up, his drunk buddy bolted and he kept saying, "Officer, I have a degree in biology, and my friend is not drunk." While he does have a degree in biology, said friend was quite drunk. Running away got him around 4 blocks and then he fell over. Sometimes it's a miracle my friends haven't managed to get me incarcerated or killed yet. I work at a store with a stupid woman. Every night she has to go outside and change the bags in 6 trash cans. We cannot make her understand to take 6 bags. She's worked there 2 years and still comes in for each bag individually. Also, I had another guy working with me, who thankfully didn't work there long, who would have to ask customers which coins would make the amount of change needed. He was fired for leaving $950 on the counter and walking off while a known criminal was standing at the counter looking at it. I have hundreds of these stories. Well, get to typing them up. When my friend was cleaning the carburetor on his 3-wheeler he just bought and was leaking gasoline on the driveway, I seemed to suddenly be concerned about it staining the driveway, and I felt the best way to stop that would be to light the gas on fire. So I lit the small puddle saying I don't want it to stain, which then caused the entire 3-wheeler to erupt in flames, him kicking the gas tank off it into my yard, catching the yard on fire, me scrambling for the hose, and a whole lot of cussing. Good times. If I saw that in a comedy series, it would be too unbelievable to be funny. My housemate threw a weighted traffic cone down the stairs and said I didn't expect that to happen after it left a dent in the wall. The same guy kicked a Hoover down the stairs because he thought it was in the way. I managed to convince a girl in high school that Canada was its own continent and that I spoke fluent Canadian. I still have no idea what she was thinking. Should have told her the official name for Canada changed to Canada last year. We had just hired a new girl at work. She was pretty eager to learn stuff, which was nice. So she was trained how to make a milkshake. Next milkshake that gets ordered, she offers to go make it. Great. So we mix the milkshake in a metal cup before pouring it into the glass. She mixes the milkshake, starts pouring it into the glass, and says to my co-worker, "Is this overflowing?" He looks over at her, and there's a puddle of milkshake. The glass is full to the brim, and her hands are covered. She no longer works there. I have a friend that tried to cook Fruit Loops in a frying pan, because at 13 she had not made herself a bowl of cereal before in her life. Then she proceeded to say true fact. During a heated game of Scrabble with my wife, she triple word scored with the word these. My brain forgot it was a word and made me yell, "What the frick is these?" There was one time where I asked my girlfriend how women used to know they were pregnant before pregnancy test. She marveled at what just came out of my mouth for a few moments before informing me that women can tell they are pregnant due to missed periods. I'm not really sure what I was thinking at the time. Not one of my proudest moments. My friend ran out of salt one time, so he seasoned his eggs with road salt. You know, the kind you spread on ice to melt the snow and ice. He said it tasted it great. Sort of made me sad for him. Well, probably won't do any serious harm, but its anti-caking additives are not rated for human consumption. That, and they probably don't bother filtering out all the gravel. My brother's roommate brought a few parts from his motorcycle that he wanted to paint into the apartment, laid down a towel, and proceeded to paint them on the carpet, because he didn't want to get in trouble for painting the sidewalk. Ended up having to pay for new carpeting, because there was paint all over. Last night, my brother went to a graduation party. A few people were sitting on the roof of a shed, and my brother was just walking around. A girl on the shed yelled to him, "Hey you, this drink tastes really good. You should come try it." So my brother goes over by the shed, looks up at her and opens his mouth. She tries to pour it into his mouth, but misses. So she tried it again, and it went right into his eyes. According to him, it hurt a lot. They ended up hanging out for the rest of the night. I really hope they end up dating and then have to tell that story every time someone asks how they met. My friend from high school got sent to the ER because he and his college roommate decided to start throwing oranges at each other during finals week. He shattered his retina. A friend and myself were camping and we couldn't find a safe place to put the campfire for the night, so we looked around and decided on a crop of small rocks lining the river. We didn't notice that there are tiny streams of water trickling throughout the rocks back into the river. We set up the fire in a neat little circle and gathered enough wood to last us until our other group of friends found us. To help them find us, we decided to pour some gas to make our fire smoke. Instead, we ended pouring about a gallon of gas onto our firewood, and it combined with the water and made what I can only describe as a mist that lingered about an inch off the watery rocks, and we lit it. Our friends and about 3 other groups of people saw the fireball and came running. We singed the hair off of our arms, legs, face, and we looked like we just got done filming a Three Stooges scene. Suffice it to say, when our friends and a strange groups of people found us, they made sure we were fine and we all camped there that night. It was a nice night. TLDR. Tried to signal friends to campsite, ending up creating a large fireball and burning the hair off of ourselves, and made some friends. When I was about 12 years old, I had all these old jars of nail polish. I also had this giant brandy snifter that I once kept a fish in. When it died, I filled it with marbles, water, and these little fake fish that floated. One day I took the thing to the bathroom sink to rinse it out. There was a jar of nail polish sitting on the counter. I thought, I wonder what nail polish does when you put it in water. Would it stay wet? Would it stick to the glass? Or float in the water? Would it sink? Would it form into a ball? Or disperse, dyeing the water the same color? I started pouring the nail polish into the water. Small drops, at first, then more and more, then different colors of nail polish. I zoned out and watched the nail polish in the water. For the record, it beads up, then bounces a little on the bottom, then flattens out but remains kind of floaty in the water. Some of the metallic shiny colors spread out on the surface like an oil slick. When all the nail polish jars were empty, I snapped out of it, as if out of a trance. I noticed that I had left all the marbles in the bottom. Antique marbles. Pretty marbles. That I wanted. So I stuck my hand in. As I pulled my hand out of the water, it was absolutely coated, wrist to fingertip, in a vast rainbow of nail polish. I frantically started wiping my hand with toilet paper, which just smeared the quickly drying polish all over my hand, leaving bits of TP in its wake. Panicking, I poured the water down the sink in an attempt to save the rest of the marbles. Now our bathroom sink was coated in nail polish, as well as the majority of the marbles. I was a latchkey kid, but only had an hour or so before my mom would be getting home from work. I spent that hour frantically scrubbing my hand in the sink with nail polish remover. I managed to cover my tracks. To a certain degree, I hid the marbles in my room to clean off later, in order to conserve the nail polish remover. There were a few dark smears left in the sink, which I hoped she'd overlook, and I told her the dark stains on my hand were from an art project at school. I later learned that the sort of not thinking it through zoning out that I often did as a kid was most likely due to ADD. I was diagnosed as an adult and have had less stupid incidents since then. My cousin's boyfriend was riding his bike home from school one day when he was 8 or 9. He was going down a big hill and saw the bus with all the high school kids stopping a few feet ahead. He went flying off his bike and broke one arm, but, not wanting to look dumb in front of them, got back on his bike. He fell off again and broke his other arm. Last week a girl in my class actually said, "What? Dinosaurs actually existed? I thought they came from books." I am a Chinook helicopter crew chief in the army. One time while climbing down the side of the aircraft, I found myself in a sticky situation. There are little foot hand holds on the side that alternate for left and right feet hands. Descending, I realized that I had my right foot on a left step. Instead of climbing back up and resituating, I tried reaching down over to the other side step but couldn't reach it. So I decided to just let go, pull my foot off the step, and jump down the 6-7 feet to ground. Unfortunately, my foot got caught when I let go and simply fell backwards and slammed my back onto the concrete floor. The tools I had been holding went everywhere, coupled with crashing noises echoing throughout the hangar. Pretty embarrassing for me, but funny for everyone that watched me do this. Reminds me of that scene in Black Hawk Down. Nearly all of my girlfriends do not believe in dinosaurs, evolution, and one does not believe in gravity. Yes, gravity. Girlfriends, not GF. I have a BF. Lay off. Gravity is a personal decision. Flies away. One time I was walking with a friend. He happened to glance over and see a condom tied to a fence. He said, "I wonder if that thing is used or not." He then walked over and licked it. I called him a moron and told him to get some STD tests. He refused on the grounds of he didn't frick, so he couldn't have gotten an STD. When my little brother was in high school, he dated a girl who was one of the least intelligent human beings I have ever encountered. She was the stereotypical cheerleader type, and she got by entirely on her looks. My brother told me he knew he had to break up with her when he walked in on her one day standing next to the heater in her underwear. He asked her what she was doing, and she said she was trying to get a tan. No joke, homegirl was standing next to a space heater trying to tan. She goes to CSU Chico now, so that shows you the standards they have at that fine learning institution. My friend told me we needed to head north-south, like northeast-northwest, except impossible. He meant vertical, duh. Nothing in particular, but I do know a guy who failed the ASVAB. The fellow was not only as dumb as a box of broken hammers, but he already had 3 kids. Too stupid for the army is pretty damned stupid. A friend of mine came over while I was making no-bake cookies. When he walked in and could smell the scent, he asked me what it was. After informing him about the no-bake cookies, his first reaction was to walk to the oven and try to find them. I then had to explain that no-bake cookies did not need to be baked. It took him quite a while for it to click. No-bake cookies. Explain this witchcraft. When I was a kid, my dad built my mom a big greenhouse. We had a glass storm door leaned up against a fence diagonally awaiting installation, and my brother hit the door repeatedly with a hammer while he was sitting under the fricking door. Tons of stitches and a tetanus shot later, he's still a retard. A friend I go to college with told me she wasn't looking forward to getting pregnant someday because it's like 9 months where you can't masturbate. I asked what she meant and she explained that you couldn't stick anything up there while pregnant because you might accidentally abort the baby. The kicker, she just declared biology is a major. She'll learn, hopefully before she gets pregnant. For some reason I was discussing height with some friends. We went on about how tall we were and how tall others were, etc. Well, this one chick blurts out, I'm 5.3, but if I take my shoes off I'm taller. I almost busted out in hysteria, but I then realized this girl was totally convinced of her statement. Funny one, my friend was recounting a skydiving story, said to me I once landed on a cloud, but I just jumped off again. His GF went really. If I remember right, vinegar was what neutralized the chemical burn, using a less acidic chemical than what was burning his hand. I suppose bleach might be cool temperature wise and might even stop the bleeding by cauterizing the wound, but it's a burn and therefore already cauterized. Even then the bleach cauterization theory is flimsy at best. Good going, ME. I guess I should correct myself in that using a less acidic substance is wrong because the lye is actually a base. I knew acids and bases could harm you on either extreme of the spectrum, but many of you are right in saying that vinegar is the proper acidity to counteract lye and bring you back to an acceptable pH of 7 and probably felt cool to the touch after the exothermic reaction was stopped. So, anybody else freaked out by Helena Bonham Carter's computer-generated nudity, or Brad's for that matter? They used vinegar in the film. Bleach would make a chemical burn much worse, as far as I'm aware. W hat, everyone knows you are supposed to use Windex. My friend, after cutting the tip of his pinky off with a knife, decided the only way to stop the bleeding would be to cauterize it. Yay, he heated up an ash poker and gave himself 3rd-degree burns. Doesn't he say vinegar and not bleach? Yes, which makes his reasoning even more questionable. There is no questioning of this guy's intelligence. I already know. My boyfriend had gone on an overnight fishing trip with a friend of his a few hours from where we live. They started off early in the day, before the sun had come up, so his headlights were on. During the drive the sun came up, so my boyfriend forgot about the headlights. They left the truck to go do their fishing, and when they came back the battery was dead. The friend told him to open his hood and let the sun hit the battery, so that it would give it a charge. Yay. His reasoning was that if you take the batteries out of your remote and rub them in your hands you get a little bit of a charge from the heat, so the sun would do the same thing. Right? Not so much. Thankfully one of the park rangers happened upon them and gave them a jump. Last night I was pretty drunk. I knocked a plate off the bench onto the floor and it didn't break. My thought process went something like, it didn't break. I wonder, and I frisbeed it into the concrete wall. It broke. My mom is very into homeopathy. The kicker is that she is dating a retired general practice doctor, who obviously knows that homeopathy is bulls, but she often tries to convince him to use her homeopathic stuff whenever either of them needs medicine. She is very smart and very well respected in the local volunteer business leader community, but it kills me to see her fight established medicine in favor of homeopathy even after we both talk to her about how government regulation and labeling of homeopathic drugs mean she is possibly spending twice as much as a bottle of aspirin yet ingesting less than 0.5% of one aspirin pill. Our arguments are usually facetious, although she firmly believes in this stuff, so I've had my fun. If I meet them for dinner and she jokingly tells me to eat my veggies, I'll take a tiny bite and exclaim homeopathy is amazing. Maybe someday she'll really listen to what we're saying and take a hard look at what she's buying into, but I really doubt that is going to happen. Your mom is insane. Just don't forget that. When I was a kid, my mother used to chase me around with the iron while ironing clothes as a joke. One day I decided to do the same to her, and she said it was hot, but I didn't believe her, so I put my hand on it and it was hot. That day my mother buttered my burn. A friend of mine was fixing something on his motorcycle. He was working with some kind of highly flammable fluid. Not sure exactly what it was, but I know it wasn't gas that he didn't want to get on his hands. Since he didn't have any rubber gloves around, he decided it would be a good idea to duct tape plastic bags to his hands. After doing his work, he decides for some reason to use a lighter for something. He's not a smoker, so I don't know what exactly it was for, and accidentally lights the plastic bags that had been drenched in the stuff on fire. Couldn't get them off because they had been duct taped to his hands. He has some pretty bad scars from that. This is the goodest fly boy. He will bring you 10 years of happiness in exchange for a like on this video. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.